Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Quick Slants with Coach Steve Johnson. Quick Slants is a weekly program that gives you, the fans, the opportunity to ask the Bethel head coach questions about the Royals, football or sports in general, or just ask of the coach's wisdom or insights that he has about life. This week we have an exciting program for you as the team heads into its first conference game against St. Olaf this weekend. So we're going to find out what the coach has got planned and hear a little bit about the Wartburg game from last week. So let's get right to Quick Slants.
We want to welcome back Coach Johnson this week. Coach, before we begin into the program, I wanted to ask you if there was any injuries or team updates that you want to give to us before we move on.
You know what, we've got enough injuries that I can't remember them all. So, and part of that is after our first live scrimmage against each other, we talk to the guys and we kind of laugh about it, but they get it, is that you're never going to really feel good again until maybe Christmas or maybe further. But that's kind of like, you're beat up. But injuries are like you're going to miss some time, if not the whole season, and we've got quite a few. We talked about Landon Mathis last week. Now he looks like, because it's his third injury, there's not as much swelling. It's his third knee blown. So he may be back, braced up, and he won't be exactly, the player that he was, but he can make up for a lot of things, and he's such a great leader. So that'll be something that we'll look forward to and keep monitoring. We've got some injuries up front. Our whole offensive line last week, every single guy except the center was new. Was the first college start at that position. And 2 out of 5, it was our first college start period. And so, that's one group that you really would like to have continuity, because all that work. And now our center last week, the only one who was incumbent, he's hurt his foot, and so he's questionable, or whatever those things are. He's way less than probable, and probably not going to play. So it's going to be more newness, but we expect great things out of those guys anyway, and so we're working through some things. It's funny when you ask about that, the tough things that you fight through, and this is an experience thing, and it can scare you, and I think as a younger coach I would fret it more. Not that I'm not sad and that kind of thing, but I just know when you fight through some stuff, you gain some toughness, and it's a James 1 deal, and it's like, I think that's a life thing too, if everything's kind of smooth and easy, when all of a sudden something punches you in the nose, you don't have any practice handling it. And so we're kind of in handling school right now, so we got to handle it.
I noticed in last season's team that was kind of a thing you had going, because you lost Landon, you lost Will Van Duzer, but the team always kind of bounced back. Do you think that's building better character, not only as a team, but as men in general?
Well, there's no doubt about it. I think that those hard stuff that you go through is what grows you. And losing our last game to Wartburg, I just know that the meetings, there's more attentiveness in the meetings, and it's not somber like a baby, but it's somber like it's serious. You know what I mean? And when you win, I always paraphrase. I think it's 1 Peter 4:8. Is love covers a multitude of sins. I always say that winning covers a multitude of sins, because you kind of laugh about something that's maybe a mistake, or not laugh, but don't take big mistakes as serious, because you won the game. And so losing does grow you. It has kind of this automatic ability to grow you, because you scour yourself a little bit.
I want to ask a question based upon that, because I always watch, like, during the NFL season, a team will be like 12-0 or 13-0, and somebody will say, it'd probably be a good idea if they lost at this point. And I've always thought, is that kind of couch psychology to say that it's good for a team to lose, or is there real benefit out of that, actually?
I'm a firm believer in that, you need to play as great as you can, and winning takes care of itself. So, I mean, if people are sitting around thinking that, I know that there's growth out of losing, but I would hope that there's growth out of winning. I don't want to lose, just because we need to lose, because if you're that good, and you're playing that well, you know, coaches are smart enough to know that, you know, what if we do right or wrong, so they'll get the guys in shape. So I guess I don't really go to that, you know, I mean, I talk sometimes about the ESPN. You know, ESPN says that on paper we're supposed to win this game, but we're going to play the game on grass, so it's not going to be, you know, we're not playing on paper. So it's just kind of baloney, really. You know, I mean, if you score more than they did, you won, and you need to, you know, to play. We're way into this what's next thing. So I've got to execute my fundamentals, trust my base, take the right steps, and execute it with physicality. And that's how you win. And if you don't, you go to the next one. So I don't know.
I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah.
I'm glad to hear it because, you know, like I watched like Kentucky basketball this last year, and they were like, "Oh, I think it was a mistake they didn't lose during the regular season or something." And I'm thinking, what coach wants to lose? I mean, you know.
Yep. And I think that there's a real. I think as coaches look at it, and that was probably that was maybe a reporter saying whatever your one was, but I think that it's important that coaches will be concerned that the players. Sometimes you can't face, you know, we can't face a great team the same way as a team that we're supposed to beat, and we know they're not as good as us as far as physically. And my biggest job is to have us play great and with an intensity, and kind of ignore who we're against, because I feel like, you know, who you are becomes a way of life, and you get good at what you practice. And so I really abhor being an up and down team, you know, and sometimes there's reasons and sometimes there's made up reasons, but I think that playing at a certain level is more important than, you know, what you win by, or if you have a loss that really helped you, you know, I mean, you know, I think it helps to win.
Excellent.
It's more fun.
I agree for sure. So you faced a very tough team this last weekend in Wartburg, and the team played incredibly well. What were some key takeaways that you used to build off of from that game?
Well, I think we played well in spurts. I think our defense was incredible, but they'd say that, you know, at the end of the game when we had a chance to come back, that we had a couple of blown assignments, and you know, and you know, Wartburg. First of all, Wartburg's a heck of a team. Second of all, I was thrilled with how hard our guys played. I felt like on offense we had, we got behind. We had some lost yardage plays, and for whatever reason, those hurt us. And then, you know, we kind of, you know, we've got the injuries up front that caused maybe a little bit of thing there. But again, you're playing against a great team, and we didn't convert offensively when we had a couple turnovers in the red zone in the first half, and that hurt us and kind of came back to bite us. And then we had a punt return by Bridge Tussler. It was an amazing play, and we had a great block on it, and it was deemed by the officials to be a targeting foul, and I totally still disagree with that. But that was called back, and that was a key in the game. It doesn't mean we would have won, but we would have taken the lead late in the game, and it was a great play, nullified, and in my opinion, the wrong call.
Some players talked to me after the game about, you know, you had 4 linemen that wound up coming in new or switching positions last weekend. So is this something that you're thinking that against a pretty good defensive team, that line really held pretty well, I thought, in the game? Is this going to be your line, or you're going to have to make modifications, or this is just, you know, kind of filling in while guys are injured at this particular point?
Well, we don't ever want to have guys fill in, you know, whoever's up next, but we do have to kind of put, you know, there's a you know, guard and tackle. They're different steps, you know. A guard's just a little bit closer to the D tackle, and so, you know, we have to do what we have to do. We would like to minimize moving guys around because of the learning factor, and there's so much more to offensive line play than anybody would ever know. But we have to do what we have to do. Again, you know, our center's hurt. We thought he had a broken foot, but turns out he doesn't, so he's not lost for the season, which is good. And so, but we have lost some guys for good, and I don't know if that's We don't really know, so we have to put together for St. Olaf the best offensive line that we possibly can, and then they have to communicate and play hard.
But you had to feel pretty positive about the way that they had played this last weekend, I would gather.
For the most point, there's a couple protection things that we weren't good with, and a couple times where we wanted to run a zone play and we got knocked back, and we just can't have that. And so, yes and no. I felt good, but I don't want to I don't want to give excuses. I don't want to give me excuses, our guys excuses, or anything else. But we need to play better at every spot, obviously. But our defense was up to the task a little bit more than our offense, and there were probably injury reasons for that. At the same time, it doesn't matter because it is what it is.
Your secondary played incredibly well against Wartburg. I was kidding Dan Lytle after the game was over that didn't they get the memo that you can't throw against him, because every time they did, it seemed he was batting down passes or something. So do you feel like your secondary has kind of become the strength of your defense at this point?
No. I would say that I don't know if we have a strength of our defense. I think the strength of our defense, if you had to put it on one guy, may have been Landon Mathis, and then but our front is so you just don't see him as much. Our front is a ridiculous group of players. Our secondary is really growing, and they're excellent. And Danny Lytle's making those plays. Matt Melhorn's terrific, and Kopka is doing a great job coming downhill. And our corners, we had an injury there, and Alan Wartburg and Jake Tater came in to do a great job there. So I guess I'm not saying that they're not our deal, but defense is it's just like an engine or a symphony. You got this guy. If the nose guard does the right thing, we got a good beginning. And then now the tackles, and then the linebackers and the alley players. So it's really hard to say who the core is, but the whole thing is way better when you make those plays deep, and they're doing a great job. But it really starts up front, in my opinion.
I think a lot of coaches would like to have an answer to this kind of question. So when you have a team like you had this last weekend that really gave you a lot of great effort, you were extremely excited about how well they went out there and battled for you. How do you then translate that from really great effort into one step further?
Yeah, I think that we want to. When I say that effort thing, Robert, it's a huge piece of importance for us to make that a way of life. We want to play so hard. We say, don't treat as ordinary what is consecrated to you. And you only get, if you're an unbelievable player, you get 40 games in your whole college life. You know what I mean? And that would mean you start at every game. And so when you get to play, it's go time. You better give everything that you have. And so it's not like, we're really excited about how hard our guys played. That better be every week. We're playing in a championship type game, not conference, so it's not the biggest thing in the world. But we expect that, but we want to notice it still. You know what I mean? And we want to play hard, and our goal seriously is, and he said it the week before. Our goal really is to play as hard as we can for as long as we can, so people hate playing us.
That's a good goal. You traveled to St. Olaf this weekend. They're a 1-1 so far. So what are some specific schemes, or I'm not looking for you to tell me your game plan exactly, but what are some things that you look at that you say you have to do to try to really do well against a team like this?
I think we have to control the football. Nate Penz is their quarterback, and he's good, and they've got a good running back, Stern Aaron or whatever, I don't know how to say it, but he does a great job, and Peterson at receiver. We've got to have those guys in check, but it's really more about lining up defensively and doing their job. If you've got a thirds coverage or man coverage and you do a great job with that, everything's going to take care of itself. Our front is electric, and they're powerful, and they play hard, and so they're hard to deal with for a long time. And so defensively, we just have to do our job. We have to, we're going to set our guys up in the right positions, and then they need to make plays. Special teams, you have to be simple and sound, and simple's not always easy. But we want to win the battle in the special teams, and that's kind of a field position battle, and we want to do a great job there. And then and really one of the biggest things there is no penalties, and so you just have to make your plays. And then offensively, we need to run the ball and have kind of a power offensively that is palpable. And that's something that we're asking our guys for this week.
Is that a bigger plan for your team just because St. Olaf has had such a good secondary, the less than 65 yards per game they're averaging passing yardage allowed? So do you try to focus more on the run, or you're going to play your style of offense regardless?
Yes. One of the things with St. Olaf, the team that they played last week, Luther only threw one time, so that would be an indicator that they don't have any passing yards against them, and then Northwestern, they do have a good secondary. They have really good players. They play hard, but we're not really concerned. We look at the schemes. How do they line up? What are they trying to do? And then formulate our plan to that. And then if we execute that, that everything will be good.
Excellent. So starting with our fan questions from this week, our first one asked, last season you had Brandon Marquardt to make a rather dominating three-headed running back attack. Are you looking for someone to really step into this role this season, or do you feel confident in the two that you already have? This is Stan from Arden Hills asking.
That's a good question, Stan. We feel like we have 5 really good running backs, and Bridge Tussler is electric, and he's crazy good. And I want more out of him, a little bit in a fundamental piece, and I'd like to give him the ball, a little bit more. We had 2 of the greatest backs probably in MIC history, the 2 leading anyway, Phil Porta and Logan Flannery, and those 2 guys, they carried the ball a lot, and they're tough guys that could really play. I'd like to see Briggs that way a little bit more. Marshall Klitsky is already that way, and he is just a tough young man, and fast, and he just does it all. So Marshall and Bridge are those guys, but then along with them we have Josh Werness, who is he's just doing a great job, and he's growing. So that's become a 3-headed monster. But we also have a couple of young guys. Gunnar Bloom is a freshman, and we're hoping he sees some action this week. And Brady Bombstup, who's a little guy, but he's a powerful little guy, so it didn't feel so little to us anymore. But so really, we have 5 backs that we think are varsity players. You know what I mean, and that's going to be good. So maybe a 5-headed monster. I can't remember the question, but it is important that we set the tone there. And our quarterback can really be, to answer Stan's question, our quarterback can really be that next runner. And Trey Anderson will play a little bit more this week, and so that'll happen.
Nice. Ken from St. Paul would like to know what position you played as a player.
I was a defensive end, 5 technique. That means outside shade of a tackle. I would have liked to have been an outside linebacker, but I probably wasn't athletic enough, and I probably wasn't big enough to be a really great defensive end. But heroes when I was a kid was like Jack Youngblood from the Rams, and not Merlin Olsen as much as like Fred Dreyer and some of those guys that kind of came off the edge. But I was a defensive end as a player, and then I coached offense most of my life, and now I'm kind of both. So
interesting. Carol from Minneapolis would like to know if you offer camps, like training kind of camps for kids where they can learn to improve their skills.
Yeah, we do. We have Coach Peterson does some work with people and gives lessons and receiving and things like that. We're real open to that. We would like to go into the city a little bit, and we're talking about some of those things, and just kind of giving clinics and spending some time in there with that. But we haven't formulated that all the way. But we're not a big camping group, but we're open to some things that way.
Excellent. A guy identifying himself as diehard Cubs fan would like to know, since you're a Chicago guy, do you believe that this is the Cubs' year? Are they going all the way?
I'm 59 years old, so since I was able to understand, and I was pretty early with sports. I wasn't maybe so great with science and arithmetic, but since I was 6, so about for 53 years, I was thinking that this was a year. My dad told me that they were going to win, but he was around in 1945 to see that. But I love their team. I think that they've got a bunch of happy-hearted guys. I love the culture that they've got. They're tough guys. I mean, I kind of want us to be. I want our football guys at Bethel to be. I want me to be. I want my family to be. Sweethearted, tough guys. And so including my daughters. But I probably shouldn't call them guys. But anyway. I think the Cubs, they have a chance. They have an unbelievable pitcher in Jake Arrieta, and they have Lester. They're kind of built, if they can get through the wild card game, they're kind of built to maybe do some damage. And those young guys, it's just I feel like this is really a team that is on the rise and all those things. And but I think a lot of the culture that they've built, they're never out of games, and they're not babies when they have a little losing streak, and you can kind of tell that they love each other, and that's a big deal. So going all the way, I'd say no, but I sure hope so, and I'm with you.
Okay, Josh from Martin Hills would like to know, what is anticipation like for you as the football season is approaching?
Boy, that's a good question. My wife has a tendency to kind of know, like kind of late July. I'm kind of never not doing this. It's just kind of part of our life. And but my wife Susan is great at preparing for this. But she kind of knows when I'm like kind of probably maybe I'm a little ADD, so I might not pay attention all the time. But there is a time that we laugh in our marriage that. She'll ask me something that's pretty basic and something that I'm really probably even interested in, and I'll answer a different question, and she'll say, okay, football just started. And that's usually at about, that's, near the end of July, which is really when I try to get away a little bit and kind of put some things down. But, always, there's always something to do, and there's always things to work with, and we've got a bunch of guys that we really love. And so when you have, 100 guys that you care a lot about, it's hard to, not spend time thinking about them. So it's cool.
That was interesting you had that statement, because our next question comes from Kathy, who would like to know, what do you think are the keys to having a long, successful marriage?
I want to come up with a quip right here. Like my wife is, that my wife is the greatest, and my wife is the greatest, and I really believe this is that in any relationship is that you have to choose to love each other, and we kind of need to do that every day, and sometimes it might not look exactly right, but if you have high expectations for someone and they're not given what they ought to, in sports, or say, oh, it's good, but I think that ought to be in your relationships too, and so my wife is really good at, knowing when she needs to hug me and knowing when she needs to confront me, and hopefully I'm that for her too, and but I think that for me, especially with marriage, is you gotta choose. If you both choose the king, and then you choose to love each other, it's something that you work on for the rest of your life, and it's never over. And it's a little bit like your relationship with God, is that you work on it until the day of Christ. And so I guess a long, successful marriage would be choose to love each other and then work on it.
That is a great answer. Our last question is from Ben from Arden Hills, who'd like to know, in your opinion, if Jesus played football, what position do you think he would play?
He'd probably play soccer, so he could watch. I don't know. Yeah, I think he'd probably be a great quarterback, but then, he'd have to forgive the receivers for dropping them, and he'd have to forgive. He could play quarterback because he could forgive the O-line for letting people in, and I don't think he wants to play. I think that he'd just like to watch. That's a good question, but I think the quarterback is a big deal. I think that the Mike linebacker is a big deal, and I think that the safety is a big deal, and I think the running back. I don't know. Okay, Jesus, he could play all of them because he's omniscient and everything, omnipresent, so he can play them all.
He could play the whole defense on his own.
Yeah. He's kind of like the Bears. No. If Ditka, no.
Excellent. Thanks, Coach, for this week.
We want to thank Coach Steve Johnson for joining us on Quick Slants this week. If you'd like to ask your own questions of the Royals head coach, please send them to us at stevejohnson@minorleaguesportsreport.com. That's Steve Johnson at minorleaguesportsreport.com. Please have your questions to us by Tuesday at noon to give the coach a little bit of time to review those questions before we air our program on Wednesday. We want to thank you for joining us this week. I'm Rob Paneer, the managing editor of the Minor League Sports Report, and we'll see you next week on Quick Slants.